Peace. Welcome to the Open Bill podcast. And today we're going to be interviewing Chief Foday. He's from the Gullah community. He lives out in Sierra Leone in Africa now. He's a co-founder of the um, North, was it North Gullah? What's he the co-founder of the
The Gullah
North?
Nation of North America. Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Now, can you explain to us what that is?
Yeah, absolutely. The Gullah Nation of North America is an organization created by people of Gullah Geechee heritage in order to, organize ourselves for cultural preservation, for self-determination, pretty much represent ourselves in the world as a
Whatever you froze up. Let's see. You have froze up. You
You
back?
got me?
Yeah, you back.
All right. Yeah, I would say, we basically launched the Gullah Nation of North America about 9 years ago. Myself and a group of other elders and other youth that felt the need to, create a new organization to, help to preserve our culture and get involved in the education, the research, and things like that. So, yeah.
So with that, do you have to be Gully Geechee to be a part of that, or is that just like a universal? Like,
Well, there's two parts of it. One part of it is that when we started as a basic community association,
okay,
association of people who share the same heritage. And then we grew into a Gullah Nation of North America organization. And we launched a mission here in Sierra Leone that began to bring Sierra Leoneans into the organization.
okay,
And the same thing we've been seeing in America as well with some of the African brothers and sisters who want to be part of, the work that we're doing to preserve our culture. They welcome, man. We say honorary Gullahs. We can't
oh,
make
okay.
we can't change your ancestry, but if you hold it down with us, man, we willing to hold it down with you, man. We're not tribalists, we're not isolationists, we're Pan Africans.
Yeah, because I see like the Gullah Geechee people, they got a rich history. I was reading up how they brought a lot of them over here to grow the rice, but saying a lot of them stayed separated. That was on the islands and kept some African language and traditions like the basket weaving and stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, what we've been finding now, more recently through our research, is that the traditional area thought to be the where the culture was most preserved is actually a lot broader. It's more counties included. It's more communities included, other than what we've been recognizing, and it's because of the Eurocentric approach to interpreting who we are. People who aren't us trying to interpret who we are for us. When we go back and we do our genealogy, we check the records of our ancestry. We find that the people in the Midlands and the people in the Low Country have been intermarrying and intermixing for hundreds of years, and so we're basically the same people. And we speak different dialects of the same Southern Creole. Also, so there's some genetic relationships, but you're right. You're absolutely correct. The bulk of the culture that is remaining is in the Low Country area of the Sea Islands, where it was most preserved, especially after slavery. After slavery, those communities became very, very isolated, and that's why it really got preserved there up till now. But believe me, bro, it was a big, vast river of culture that dried up. It used to reach other parts.
Yeah, I remember growing up. My grandmother from Aiken, South Carolina, and
Okay.
she used to talk so fast. Like the only thing I used to understand is when she said my father and his siblings' name, but she always called the zinc.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
some
And
like so.
you said Aiken, South Carolina, man. Let me put you on to something, right? Depending on how you define what a Gullah Geechee is and what Africanisms are, Aiken, South Carolina originally used to be part of Orangeburg District. Before they had counties, they were districts. So
Okay.
Orangeburg and Aiken are actually neighboring counties today that used to be part of the same geopolitical region. The people in Orangeburg are largely related to the people in Aiken. But Aiken is very important because Aiken was founded by three African freedmen after emancipation. It's the only county in South Carolina founded by freedmen during Reconstruction. Aiken was a battle zone, man. They had some serious race struggles there, And also Aiken is the county that received the majority of what they call the wanderers. In 1858, the last known shipment of stolen Africans was brought into Georgia, shipped up the Savannah River, and then over half of them, 200 out of the 400, ended up in Aiken and Edgefield and Orangeburg and Barnwell. So they have a very strong connection to the people of the Congo, because that's where they got the people from the Wanderer slave ship from. So I'm talking about 1858. We hear about Clotilda 1860. Yeah. We don't hear about the Wanderer 1858 right there in Aiken, where you from. So definitely we have strong African heritage there.
That's wild, because I never been to Aiken. I never been to Aiken, but my family, one of my cousins, they still own the same house. They still own the house. It's up now. It's in Aiken on Cherokee Ave, but like I've never been there. Like I'm gonna have to take a trip out there one day.
That's the village. You know, when you talk about Sankofa, man, you know, that's where you start. You start with those ancestral places where our ancestors were confined. And you go to those cemeteries, you go to those churches. You know, we become so conscious, man, that we become jerks. Yeah. You know, we have to humble our consciousness too, and make sure that we go get that information that's there for us. You know, because now we got children, grandchildren. Yeah. It's more important than pride. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, because I was like last year I got in contact with another lady who was related to the Bakes and the Hicksons from Aiken, South Carolina, and she told me that she went down there and she said she visited the graveyard, but they had moved it to another spot because they built something else over there, whatever. But I'm gonna have to go down there. And with African ancestry, you also did that, right?
Yeah, I took African ancestry. Well, my sister took African ancestry from my mother's side.
Okay.
So we had the benefit of knowing like where my mother's maternal DNA goes back to, based on African ancestry testing. Yeah, I've also taken ancestry DNA and 23andMe. You know, there's a difference between autosomal testing the whole genome. Yeah. Yeah, and then testing different one lineage. And for me, being a cultural scientist, someone who's studied history and culture, and I understand that these ethnic groups aren't necessarily bloodlines. Yeah. These are cultural groups. There are societies that people belong to. You can be initiated into these groups. Yeah. You don't have to be born into these groups. You know, and so for us to take a DNA test and determine that we belong to a society is kind of crazy. But to take a DNA test and show that you actually are related to an individual is a whole completely different thing. So for me, I took the African ancestry test. My sister took it for my maternal line. We came back Bamalike of Cameroon. On the 23andMe and the ancestry test, myself, I found 15 different African cousins in 5 different African countries. And so I found living relatives who took the DNA test. Some of them are Africans who migrated to America and took DNA tests to find family that they lost contact with recently, not expecting to find us. Yeah. And so, they're not really expecting to, you know, it's so many different reasons why people go to America. They might be looking for an auntie or uncle, somebody who got separated from them in the same kind of way that we got separated during slavery. People are now getting separated as a consequence of migrating to the U.S., getting lost in the sauce, and they want to find each other too. In the process of that, they're finding us, and we're finding them. So in my family, we have a very rich oral tradition. I know I can take my oral history back to early 1800s. I can name several of my ancestors who were African born and arrived in America on documentation. These people are born in Africa. And so I've done the research to validate and get a better understanding of this African heritage that we have, particularly by using my own genealogy and genetics. I have older cousins, younger cousins. It's like a family sensation for us. Everybody's doing it. And so we're able to cross-reference between each other's results and begin connecting with people and learning from the people that we connect with about their side of the story. So it's a very powerful thing that's happening. Through DNA, we're able to unlock information that without it, we would never be able to get access to. I would never be able to identify the cousins that I've identified, I talk to every day now. I got Igbo cousins, I got Mende cousins, I got Kru cousins, I got Fula cousins. I got people who showed up in my DNA test from different ethnic groups. And that's exactly how it should be as a Gullah Geechee.
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, we should be mixed West and Central African.
That's like I tested my father, myself, and my mother and siblings. They all took their ancestry DNA test. And on my father's side, his mother is from Aiken. So we had I found like 4 Igbo cousins, and I found one cousin from Nigeria, from Yoruba, and then I found cousin from the Sante and from the Fonte people of Ghana. And then he had one from Zambia. I forgot what tribe, because they messaged me back and was telling me, but I forgot what tribe he said he was from. And then, like, with my mother's side, I had tested, like you said, the mtDNA from African ancestry. I had tested her on that, you know what I'm saying? And it said that she shared the same haplogroup as some people from the Mende people. But then she also has a match from Mende on ancestry DNA.
Okay. You know, and it's very important, because once you learn about these connections and you realize that having a direct match is different than just having the results saying, "Hey, you come from this tribe in this country."
Exactly.
You never get to meet a participant on the other side. I can appreciate having the DNA destroyed, but just wait. Show me who I connected to first, specifically, so I can go to them and talk to them and learn about them, because these are the other DNA testers on the other side. The autosomal testing allows us to do that, and it's powerful, because I was doing some research on the development of African ancestry, and I was going through different interviews and things like that, and I got mad love and respect for African ancestry because of what they stand on, you know. But at the same time, there's so many different dimensions to genetics, and no one company does it all. So I was studying, and it said that Dr. Rick Kittles, his father, when he did his Y-DNA test, it came back to a German.
Yeah, European, right?
Yeah, and so he had to take the autosomal testing in order to learn more about his paternal lineage.
Yeah.
But you know, but now today you have customers of African ancestry who would attack you for taking the other tests, whereas the man who actually is a co-founder took the other test to learn more about his African ancestry, because his Y didn't add up to an African.
Yeah, it was
the same
European.
reason why other people would do it. You know,
it's like I had also tested with family tree DNA with the Y haplogroup test, and I had a match. My haplogroup came back EM96, which originated in like East Africa and branched out into West Africa. So I came across a match from Kenya, from the, I'm gonna mess it up, the Kikuyu tribe or whatever.
Oh yeah, Kikuyu.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, they're Bantus. Yeah, man.
So you got to. I mean, you got to deal with it all. Like you say, don't one company do everything.
For sure, and that's what we're looking for. You know, when we say we Black and we're looking for our African identity, we looking for it all. Like, you know, we looking for it all. And there's been so much admixture. There's been so much imposed genetics on us. And, you know, I think it's kind of heartbreaking for some people to take autosomal testing, because maybe they didn't want to see all that European DNA. They didn't want to see that, you know, they didn't want to see the other elements of themselves. But the reality is, man, I'd rather just know it all and be able to connect with some African cousins and take it from there, man, because believe it or not, if they want your DNA, they probably already got it.
That's exactly what I tell people. I say, if they want your DNA, I said, you got the hospital selling information, you got the doctor's office selling information, you got motor vehicles giving you personal information. Like, I mean, like, you're on social media, so anything they want to know about you, they can find out about you. Like,
right.
So like, it's crazy.
So one of the projects that we're working on now with the Gullah Nation of North America is we have a project that we call Lost and Found Genetic Genealogy Project.
Okay.
It's based on the findings of my family I have an elder cousin. Shout out to Baba Kimo Mojoy. This brother, he DNA tested, man. He has like over like 20 different African people in his DNA. He's a generation above me, but he's a DNA cousin. He's a blood cousin of mine.
Okay.
So we're able to cross-reference because we know how we relate. It's so dope, man, because when you test the older people in your family, they go farther back to the African connection, you know? So it's dope to have access to the results because you learn. You know, you really get to learn about different elements of who you are. And the whole thing is to embrace it all. So it's not being particular or being tribalist, trying to connect with one lineage of my whole family. No, I want to connect with it all. If it's African, I want that. I want to reclaim that, right? And so it's like what you were saying. So we have a program called Lost and Found. Now the concept is just like when you in school, they have a Lost and Found box back in the day. You know, well, we got some lost and found Africans. We got some Africans that we found that need to be reclaimed. And so we're going to start a project here in Sierra Leone, get some DNA tests over here, go to certain people that we've already been dealing with that understand the value of the project and get them DNA tested. One, to get their matches in the database, get their DNA in the database so that more of us can match with them and pair with them. And then also at the same time, be able to be the bridging device. So now we'll be able to do the research through their matches and then connect them with their cousins out there in the diaspora from the diaspora side of it. So it's going to be a dope project, man. But we're working on that right now. Talk about Gullah Geechee, talk about Sierra Leone.
Yeah, and that's good because like I'm in contact with some people from Sierra Leone that live out there. They Mende. I talk to them maybe about every day, a couple of them, and like I've been trying to get them DNA tested because they want to do it, but like where they at? Are you familiar with is it Station Hill? It's like West Sierra Leone, Station Hill. That's the part where they at. So I was trying to do it, but like with the whole PO box thing, is like they was trying to get PO boxes and they having a hard time like with the receiving the mail and stuff like that. So
well, you know what it is that we have to just upgrade the way we move. You know, like sometimes when I get visitors, they come through, they can bring me little items and stuff like that. But you know, we're an organization. We're actually a nonprofit 501c3 organization. So we have the capacity even to partner with the DNA companies and get those tests and get them flown over, however way we want to do it. But you know, it is difficult to mail things back and forth. I do have a PO box address here. I've been able to mail things to America. It gets there within 10 days. I'm talking about the snail mail, the postal mail.
Okay.
Same thing with the UK. I've been able to mail things to the UK. It gets there, postal mail, no problem. But for us to receive things is different. And the reason is because they have to put the mail that's coming to Sierra Leone on the plane. And so they have to have extra space on the plane. They prioritize what people are paying for over what is coming as postal mail. So your mail might get held up for a whole month,
and
2 months because
that's another thing. One of them was telling me like they've been waiting for some type of mail for like 2 or 3 months, like. But I see now, like I see Ancestry. I know Ancestry now, and they ship the test directly to Sierra Leone now and stuff like that. When I was reading, but that's a good that's a good project. We just call Lost and Found. That's a good project.
Yeah, for sure, man. You know, the people here, they really want to know the truth about their connection to us. And I think that we also have a right to know the truth about our connection to them. It's not just about genetics, man. It's deeper than that. You know, we have cultural connections here. We have linguistic connections here. We have historical connections here, meaning that, you know, people like me and you, people African-born Americans, is the founders of Freetown, founders of Monrovia, founders of Liberia. You know, our ancestors here before us. They've been coming here for centuries, building this same repatriation movement that, you know, that we still building today. So, it's not a new thing. I believe that the Back to Africa movement might be older than even any other movement that we developed in the West. We've been coming back to Africa since 1787. You understand? And so it's been an ongoing process. And people here, they really want to know. They hear about it all the time. They hear about slavery, but where's the evidence? These DNA tests provide us with scientific evidence that we can use to strengthen our understanding of ourselves. So I encourage them, but at the same time, educate yourself about genetics if you're going to be taking DNA tests. Educate yourself about what you're doing. So, you ain't just spitting a bunch of mythology,
Because like a lot of them that I talk to, like they never learned about the translated slave trade in school, like. So
yeah,
and
yeah. It's not that they don't learn about it because they they do touch on it. I haven't never really spoke to someone here who never heard about slavery, but they don't hear anything much about it. They don't hear the details. They don't understand that. They don't understand that those people who left were their ancestors. They don't understand until you make it plain. That those people's children out there are your cousins, your relatives out there today. They just don't know themselves, and you forgot all about them a long time ago. So it's a big thing. It's a big rediscovery of who we actually are. And the people here, man, listen, they're very excited about it. The people that I've dealt with, I had the opportunity to help one sister. She's actually, her father is Lebanese and her mother is Mandingo or Mende. And her father, even though he's a Lebanese, his grandmother is a Mandingo, is an African, but everyone else in his lineage is Lebanese. So when I took her DNA test and she got the result of her DNA test, her mother's side, the African side, didn't have any matches, meaning that Africans aren't getting tested.
Yeah.
Africans we need to get more of our people in the areas where we know we have ancestry connected, tested. That's how we're going to find the villages, the clans, the surnames. That's how we're going to find all the intimate details, is by getting more African people tested who belong to these large families, these large clans. That's the best way. The nuclear family don't really exist here. It's a very big family here. It's not a small family here. So for us on this side, we can get to the right elder or the right person, get their DNA, and it'll cover thousands of people. As opposed to here in America, you might take a DNA test, it cover 15 people. Over here, you're going to cover hundreds, just because the way that the family structure still exists in Africa.
Because when I be talking to him, like I be talking to him, next thing you know, I didn't talk to like 15 people. They're like, how you doing? And talking and passion, like, and one person got like one person got 30 siblings, like.
Yeah, it's because we still live a traditional life. One thing about Sierra Leone, just to talk about Sierra Leone a little bit, right? Sierra Leone, as a country, is something new on the map. It's only as old as colonialism in West Africa in terms of its territory. From 1898 until 1961, Sierra Leone was colonized by Britain. But in 1961, Sierra Leone got its independence from Britain, so to speak. And so from 1961 until now, the people of this country have been citizens of a single political entity. But prior to that, it was not like that. All the way until 1961, Freetown was a British colony, and the rest of the country were being ruled by traditional chieftaincies or by traditional authorities. And they had a protectorate relationship with Britain. So Britain would protect them for trade purposes, and just try to like control them indirectly from Freetown. And so in 1961, everybody just became Sierra Leoneans all of a sudden. It's a new nationality. It's not something that they've really been identifying with for hundreds of years or something like that. So when you understand that, then you can put things in the proper perspective. Then you can really put things in the proper perspective, because that means that the traditional authorities only recently became part of a larger political entity. only recently, 1961.
Yeah, that's
So a lot of that is still there. A lot of that is still there. You know, in fact, the local level of governance is controlled by the chiefdoms. The paramount chiefs are the local governors. When you go to the villages, they have the same power as someone in the government, but they rule by traditional laws and they rule within under the Constitution, but they rule by custom, and it's completely allowed. Same thing you got in Ghana and other parts of Africa, but it's here as well. So you have a society that has layers and levels. You have the secret societies, the men and the women societies, where they learn how to hunt, they learn how to be men, how to be women, how to bear children, how to cook, how to clean, how to build houses, how to defend themselves. They learn all these things before they're old enough to have babies. Okay. They learn these things. This is their educational system. They learn how to farm. They learn how to do basic things that they need to survive. And so you have that underlying education. And once you're initiated, once you're a member of Poro or Sunday, you are permanently a member unless something happens that you get kicked out. So inside they have what they call bylaws. They have laws that only govern those societies. And you got to go by the laws if you're in those societies. So there's levels of social and political control and cultural mechanisms in place to keep a person grounded in their African identity. So now let's get to religion. The majority of the country is Muslim on religion, but you got a small minority of Christians. But you'll find Christians marrying Muslims. You'll find people from different ethnicities marrying people from other ethnicities like it's nothing here. Like it's absolutely nothing here. You'll find Muslims respecting Christmas, and you'll find Christians respecting Ramadan here. So you have a very, very religious, friendly society because the common denominator is the societies that they belong to under that.
Yeah.
The culture. The culture is what brings them together. It's powerful, brother.
Because like sometimes when I be talking on the phone with them, I hear the church music playing, and they're like, "Oh, that's them at church." But a lot of them is Muslims, but then their cousins is Christians because they married Christians, and they say we all get along. They say we all get along.
Yeah, man. You know, the difference is that, you know, a Muslim in America is at a disadvantage because of white Christian nationalism. A Hindu in America is at a religious disadvantage because of white Christian nationalism in the United States. But in Africa, where you had an independent development of Islam and Christianity that was a little different, where the people took hold of it and did what they wanted with it, you'll find that there's more tolerance there. You won't find the kind of religious debates or squabbles. People respect each other's faith. Everybody has their own thing. But in America, you'll find like we have these debates around religion and core beliefs, and that people here they're like, man, whatever, man. You know, that's secondary. You know, can we grow some food? Can we make some money? Can we learn something together? Like the priorities are more set culturally in this, you know, in the African setting. That's what we need to be able to come here, learn, repackage, regroup, and export back. Not gold, not diamonds, the culture. The culture is the richest thing that we can come and learn and extract and export. We shouldn't be taking diamonds and minerals like the enemy. If anything, we should be investing in refineries, be investing in industry, things that will keep the minerals here, keep our iron ore here. Sierra Leone has the second largest deposit of iron ore on the earth. It also has the fourth largest natural deep harbor. Natural, meaning that man never had to lay hands to it. The fourth largest, the number one largest natural harbor in Africa is right here in Freetown. It's the harbor. And so you have a lot of abundance here. And we can look at countries and say, well, we gauge their value based on what they have materially that we can gain from, that we can consume from abroad. But we don't think about the cultural aspects. You know, right now in our community, we're trying to grab hold of our African-centered education. We're trying to save our youth from going down the wrong path. You know, being thoughts, being gangsters, wanting to be savages and all this. Yeah. We need to slow down the next generation and provide them with a cultural African-centered rites of passage. By the time they're 12 and 13 and 14, they already got well-seasoned thought of themselves They're proud to be black. They understand the dynamics of the mass incarceration and the school, the prison pipeline. They know what they're up against. I went through that as well, but no one was there to tell us what we was up against. And so that's the difference between now and back in the days. Today you got warriors who actually survived going down the wrong path, that have returned to save as many as they can, to divert as many as they can from the wrong path. So it's a very important thing what I'm saying, man. This cultural things that we're doing, it can reach young people who's really looking, they're just looking for an identity.
Yeah, and then what gets me is like it's a lot of bad misinformation out there where you got a lot of people telling these youth that they always been over here. They're the real Native Americans and stuff like that. Like that's poisoning their brains. Like
It really is. It really, I'll be honest with you, right? You can take a grain of salt and then try to blow it way up, right? And there's certain details of our history, and we got to understand that there was a genocide that took place in North America, a big genocide. Whereas there was different groups of people being impacted by it. And what I'll say by that is this: you have these theories that people are creating because they're anti-African theories. They don't want to have to arrive at the conclusion of being Africans because they don't want the African responsibility. But as soon as Africa is united and powerful and we reclaim our destiny in this world, everybody's going to want to be African. You know that? Everyone's going to throw all those away and then say, well, I did hear that my people was Yoruba. They're going to they're going to pull all the feathers out their head and they're going to get back to the roots. But right now, the image and the attack on the African culture and the African image, it makes our people not want to identify. That's one thing. And it's been very, very heavy throughout the generations. There's been a very hard nudge away from us being proud black people, black and proud Africans. So that's one thing. Another aspect is that there is and there has been some mixture between those who were taken over during the transatlantic slave trade through the Middle Passage and those who were there prior. Those people who were Native Americans or Red Indians or whatever terminology you prefer, those people were already there before people like my ancestors got there. We wasn't enemies of them people. The reality is that many of them enslaved us too. You had five civilized nations: the Choctaw, the Creeks, the Cherokees. You had five civilized nations that the European called civilized because they adopted the European ways, including the enslavement of African people. So they adopted the race-based enslavement, chattel enslavement of our people. And at the end of the day, we ended up on their rolls, we ended up in their censuses, we ended up around them people at the point of emancipation. And a lot of our ancestors so identified with them that it passed down the wrong way, bro. On the other hand, you got groups like the Yamasee. You got groups like the Seminole Indians, the Seminoles. You have groups like the Gullahs who ran away to Florida and literally intermixed and mingled with them like it wasn't nothing. And so you have certain lineages of African people that do have a strong connection to some native groups, but that doesn't overall wrap to all of us all of a sudden change the African identity of our people. It's being done even with Gullah Geechees. You have people saying, well, Gullahs is from Africa and Geechees are the Native Americans. Bullshit.
Yeah, I just seen a lot of that on YouTube.
Any of that theory. It's just something now that people create so they can create argumentation. Argumentation is really like it's fact. Yeah, man. Yeah, man. It's a nasty thing. And so what I'm saying is that if you really have the roots, then be proud of it. But the reality of it is that when you take a whole group of people and you do that with a whole group of people, it's completely bullshit. Excuse my language, but it's BS. Gullah Geechee people, what makes us Gullah is our Africanisms. What makes us Gullah is the fact that we still got thousands of African words that we speak, that we still brought the watermelon seed and the rice seed and the okra seed over from Africa with us. That we were and we are Africans. Any admixture happened as a consequence of us being forcibly removed from our motherlands is not something that happened voluntarily. So even if there is Native American blood and or white blood. We treat the Native Americans just like the white blood, man. Like we Africans. I
Exactly.
know my DNA. I'm 95% African, man. I'm born in 1979. I'm still 90. I find African cousins that I got more African DNA than.
Yeah. And
Admixtures happen here. The admixturing happened here in Africa too, brother. So you understand it. The Europeans that came down, they made babies. They fathered lineages here. And when you go deep into the neo-colonial structure, you find the white bloodlines.
To give away stuff when you give your money away.
yeah, yeah, and you right about that because I was researching when I was researching I was looking at the Mende lineage because my DNA match on my mother's side that's from Sierra Leone. I was looking up the surname, the last name Paca, and then I seen where one Paca lineage a white trader married a Mende lady. His last name was Rogers, and they still had that name connected to Paca. It'd be Rogers Paca.
Exactly, brother. Exactly. We're made to feel bad because of the because of the rapist blood. We're made to feel other than because of the admixture that was imposed on us. And in reality, that you'll find that admixture all throughout Africa at this time because of the same slavery and
He froze up.
yeah,
All
brother. Can
right,
you hear
I hear
me?
you now. Yeah, froze up.
All right, sorry. So yeah, man, we have to take heed of that too, because we're so quick to disqualify each other. But I'll tell you this: when an African moves to Europe and they marry a white woman and they come back with a mulatto child, that mulatto child is treated like 100% whatever that the African man is. They get treated like 100% Mende. They get treated like 100% Yoruba. They get treated like 100% whatever. But when we come back with, genetics connected to slave rapes, um, it gets turned into something that's a little bit different. So we always get hit with a double-edged sword, so to speak. It's always some kind of counter catch-22 when it's us. But the reality is that we've all been raped by the same cracker. We've all been violated by the same bukra. It's been the same Europeans all of this time, and it's been the same sellout Africans all of this time, and it's been the same freedom fighting Africans all of this time, and it's been the same cowards on the sideline talking a bunch of smack like fans watching a fight. There's very few of us that's actually skinning the game, bro. Doing the real work to make sure that the people here don't have to rely on no middleman and getting to know who we are and getting to understand our story, and vice versa. We don't need no more middlemen. We need to do this thing directly.
You're right about that. So was it like a big change when you moved over to Africa?
Oh yeah, oh yeah, absolutely, man. Moving to Africa is something that I wanted to do. When you were a kid, you hear about Africa. For me, it naturally was like fascinating to hear about Africa. To know that, damn, that's where my people really come from. It was fascinating for me. I'm born in '79. By the time I was of age, man, we was trying to be a little proud about being black. It was in schools and Black History Month and all this kind of stuff. So early exposure helped me really understand, like, yo, we Africans. I'm a black man. But I always had this thing where if I ever could go to Africa, I would at least like to go at least visit. I would like to at least go and see and meet some people. But later on in my life, man, as I became more involved in activism and a more committed Pan-Africanist, I started making real connections with people on the continent, much like you. Started to connect with people, started to vibe with them. I realized, man, yo, anything I could do for y'all, man, let me know, basically. and became a supporter of people who was doing similar community organizing here in Sierra Leone and other parts of Africa. So for me personally, I came here as a worker. I came here to get busy. I came here to learn and teach. I want to exchange. And it turned into a full repatriation because, I'll put it like this. I knew who I was and what I wanted to do, but I hadn't yet really discovered my purpose and I hadn't yet found my peace. I happen to find my peace of mind here, and I happen to find a great purpose in being here as well. When I got here, it wasn't that much activity going on. They had a war here from 1991 to 2002, 11-year war, civil war, very bloody. The movie Blood Diamonds documents some of that movie.
Okay.
But that happened here. I got in contact with some young cats out here when I was young. Actually, we was all under 30 that had been part of the war, that had been victims of the war, that had been participants in the war, people who was trying to rebuild the country after the war. And they was young, they was Pan-Africanist, man. Facebook and MySpace was new, so we was finally being able to communicate with the other side using social media back in 2005, 2006, 2007. And so we was able to actually begin to connect with these quote-unquote child soldiers, quote-unquote rebels, quote-unquote refugees from this war in this country and try to lend a hand, try to build relationships where we can be advisory in terms of projects, how we can raise resources and make sure they're good, support their activists. And part of that was bringing them over to America, touring them, sharing our platform with them and stuff like that, man. Just making movement progress. Making progress within the movement was the main motive. So when I got here, I had already been building relationships here for 6 years with people who I had considered comrades, almost like brothers to me, man, because the way that they received me and the work that we was doing. And so when I got here, I was well received, but it was difficult, brother. It was difficult because it's a whole different society, it's a whole different continent. Even food was different. The water drinking was different. Everything was different. I had to adapt to a system that seemed to be outdated in America. People still have wells, well water, and no running water. You got a bucket and you dumping water on your head and washing with a scrunchie, and the whole experience of it first gave me a little bit of shock. I was like, oh, what is this? But the way that the people understand, how to treat people who are strangers is because a lot of the ethnicities here migrated here from other parts of Africa. They migrated from other regions of this part of West Africa, and then they settled here in Sierra Leone. So they have somewhat of a culture of dealing with people who are newly arriving and things like that. And, it was difficult, bro. The health situation was difficult on the ground. Even the roads was very difficult on the ground, especially when I first got here. I arrived here in February 2013. And from then to now, I've seen a lot of infrastructural changes that are really beginning to, lighten the load for the people. I've seen roads improved. I've seen schools improved. I've seen things improve gradually, but I don't think that they've improved to the satisfaction of the nation. I don't think the people are satisfied with the pace of development. But I've actually been able to see some development since I got here. So I'm thankful. It was difficult at first. One of the first things was difficult was the language. But for me, because I had some exposure to Gullah Geechee language in my family, hearing it, I couldn't speak it, but I could hear it. I could easily interpret and translate what people were saying to me in Creole. I picked up patois very easily as well. I like to listen to reggae and Jamaican music, so it was easy to hear this Creole here. But now I'm able for talk. Once you're able for talk, you done. So now I'm fluent in it. I don't have no problem with it anymore.
Yeah, I got me a Creole dictionary. I used to be looking at, but yeah, when you're speaking about the war, I had interviewed a lady a while ago, and she had told me before I interviewed, she had told me like she was born during the war, and how her mother had gave birth to her, but they had to keep moving, and she almost died. She said her grandmother and mother had to make like an incubator, put it like in a plastic bag,
Wow.
and said
Yeah,
like
man.
she would die because she was born early.
Yeah, man. It was rough, man. It was rough. You know, by all accounts, the war that hit this country, it was no joke. It was real war. It wasn't nothing playful. And the same thing with Liberia. The Liberia struggles was very serious. You know, I would like to encourage quote unquote African Americans and other people from the African diaspora, what I've become accustomed to calling the Western Africans, the Africans of the Western Hemisphere. Malcolm called us Afro Americans. He said, when he said Afro Americans, he wasn't talking just about African Americans in the United States. He was talking about everybody of Afro or African ancestry in the Western Hemisphere. When he said Organization of Afro American Unity, he was talking about Africans in Chile, Africans in Brazil, Africans in Canada, Mexico. He wasn't just talking about the Africans in the United States of America. Very, very important point to make. Also, so for me, I just like to say Western Africans because we're in the Western Hemisphere, but we're absolutely African. And so, you know, for us, we've been absent, but we do have a legacy and a history here. We have already contributed to the forward development and liberation of Africa in many, many different ways. It's not a project that we have to decide on and get started from scratch. It's a continuum. It's understanding that there's already a legacy and a body of work before us. So when we see Liberia and we see Sierra Leone and we realize that they both had civil wars and massive killings in these countries from social unrest, in these countries particularly in the last 30 years, for over a decade. They was going bonkers in Liberia for longer than they was going bonkers in Sierra Leone. What kind of impact does that have on the psyche of the people? What kind of resources or what kind of development infrastructure do we need to bring home for human development? Not for roads and wealth and material things, but what can we bring back that will put a system in place that will allow humans to have more food in Sierra Leone, better nutrition in Sierra Leone? How can we get some running water and some solar lights? These are the questions that will improve the quality of living for ordinary people. And that's really what I got and fell very much in love with trying to do is cut the shit. I want to go meet the people where they are, understand their problems, meet with some of my guys out there, some of my homies out there and say, man, listen, man, this is the problem here. We can solve this problem. This is how they solve this problem here. And learn and contribute and learn and contribute and learn and contribute. That's how we have to do this. In the past, when our ancestors were brought to these countries, they were brought back by the British and by the Americans. And the British and the Americans always used that group of Africans that came first as a buffer group. They used us to colonize or neo-colonize the indigenous people.
Yeah.
So we are coming back, but we're also coming back with that stigma as well. We're coming back with that stigma that, oh, come on, man, you know what y'all did in Sierra Leone and Liberia. So I'm saying that because now it's time to heal from that wound. It's time to heal from those transgressions and those betrayals. Why do I say that? Because many of our ancestors who ended up in Charleston, in Aiken, South Carolina, Orangeburg, South Carolina, Beaufort, Georgetown, all up down Georgia, all up across the United States of America today, originated in these places among these people, Liberia and Sierra Leone. Not only that, but when the white man said, I'm going to take you back to where you came from, they brought us here. They brought us here. They brought us to Freetown. They brought us to Liberia. And so from there, they've always been able to hide their hand and make it seem like it's been us pressing the natives. When in reality, they brought us back and colonized us in Africa first. When you want to ask who's the first Africans to be colonized directly by Europeans, by the Americans and British in Africa, it would be us. It would be us. They brought us back and colonized us here. So it's a big, big thing. Also, at the time when they brought us back, slavery still was rampant in the interior. People still had domestic slavery in Sierra Leone until 1927 when it got took off the books. So you understand, like, when we came back, we had already been victims of slavery, and we were freedom fighters. We were abolitionists when we came back. There was no slaves in Liberia, in Monrovia or Freetown, but you had enslaved people within the traditional cultures that had these caste systems, regardless. And so there was people still actively engaged in slave trading when we came back. So that's one of the reasons why we didn't just come back and get down with the brothers and sisters the first time. Because when we came back, they were slave traded, and the white boy brought us back so we can be free. And the white boy had all the goods that they wanted. So we ended up playing middleman, learning what we got to learn from them to be able to keep up and build something for ourselves. It got caught in between the oppressor on both sides. And the history doesn't get told correctly. So it's time to tell the truth. It's time to heal. And I believe that Sierra Leone and Liberia are healing parts. They're places where when we really grasp the psychological connection that we have to these places, the spiritual, historical connection that we have to these places, the biological, genetic connection that we have to these places, we will prioritize healing the relationships on this side, for sure.
Yeah, and that's what we need. We need to bridge the gap between the Afro American and the people, our brothers and sisters in West Africa. Because like it's like today, like when you look on the internet, it's crazy because now you have Africans from Africa, they debating and talking about the African Americans is talking about the Africans over there in West Africa, and the ones in the Caribbeans is talking about the Africans. Like it's crazy. Like they got this whole big thing going now. Like,
yeah, man, it's nasty, really. You know, I call it as nasty work. You know, that's the complete opposite of where so many of us have been sacrificing to get our people. You know, by now, if we was working in unity and tandem, man, we would be literally shaking the world around. But you know, there's so many divisive ploys out there in terms of people trying to instigate fights between us, trying to emphasize differences and diversities. And the reality is that when you look at it, most Africans have never met an African from the diaspora. Most Africans on the continent have never met someone like me or you in the flesh. Everything they know about us
seen on TV
is from media. And most of us in America have never met an actual African and sat down and had a good conversation and tried to bind with them. I know people who are married to Africans in the United States. My nephew is his father is a Yoruba man, and it's happening more and more and more because once we go to school together, once we work together, once we get to talking and socializing together, we realize there's really no difference that would justify us fighting over at all, especially not in a situation where we black regardless in the Western world. It don't matter where we come from. It don't matter how you feel about it. You know what I'm saying? In the eyes of the oppressor, we ain't nothing but black folk. Everything else is secondary. That's why we got to have a race first mentality, a B1 mentality. We got to see ourselves as black people first, unite with Africa first. And when I say unite with Africa, it doesn't mean everyone has to come back to Africa. Everyone has to take an African name and start wearing African clothes. I mean, hey, that'd be great. But that's not what I mean. That's not what I mean. What I mean is that in the sense that Chinese people put China first, no matter where they are on the face of the earth. If you find a Chinese person in New York and Chinatown, they're Team China. If you find an African person in the United States, they're supposed to be Team Africa. That's what they're supposed to be. But there's so many forces out there that don't want us to have this clarity of identity. You know, we've been fighting for this identity for generations to become the dominant identity for all of us, this African identity, where we unite first and foremost as African descended people. And then we build off of that in all directions and turn our divisions or our differences into our diversities. You know, we just got more flavors as opposed to, you know, mine's is better than yours and yours is better than mine. Another thing is that not only is the media presetting us and conditioning us psychologically to have antagonism towards each other, but we're not doing what we could do with resources that we have right now to spark relationships with each other, to really start to break the ice and become more sociable, because I'll tell you this, soon by 2050, I believe that African people will make up over 2 billion population,
Yeah, it might
and
be
the
majority.
majority of that is going to be under 35, brother. So we got to have a program for young people, and we got to get it together now, because the majority of the race is going to be young. If you look at the Chinese race right now, you look at the Japanese, or you look at the Europeans, their birth rates are declining. I see things online right now, man. Like they're begging for African men to come to Japan and impregnate the women.
Yeah, over in Japan, because
they're begging for people to come to Belgium. Please come to Belgium and impregnate the women.
Yeah, I've seen that too. A lot of Japanese women.
There's something going on. It's something really going on.
Yeah,
with with the world.
And a lot of Japanese people, a lot of Japanese women, they were saying they don't want to have children. They got their career, they working, they making their own money. They don't want to be at home. Yeah, it's crazy.
So it's a lot of dynamics, brother. It's a lot of dynamics. On the African continent, we traditionally had one continental group from the time where they formed the Organization of African Unity to now that you have the African Union. But what you have now happening in the Sahel region, in Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger, even areas like Guinea and Senegal, what you have now is you have the emergence of a whole new regional organization that has the potential to recruit and bring other people into it. And so now you have two contending regional bodies. You have the ECOWAS, you have the Alliance of Sahel States, you have the African Union. So you have all these breakdowns and meltdowns happening in Africa at the same time. If we're not smart, if we're not careful, we're going to miss an opportunity to strengthen ourselves. Because what happens when the enemy begins to fight themselves every time, historically, is that we have an opportunity to loosen the chains. We have an opportunity to slit some of their throats. When they get to fighting, we get to fighting too. But we really got to know what we're fighting for and how we're going to be fighting. And when I say fighting, I don't mean guns and violence and all that stuff. I mean literally, liberating the minds of African people.
Yeah.
Marcus Garvey said, others may be able to, liberate the body, but only we can emancipate the minds. And so it's the self-work that we got to do, So, it's only happening because of the ignorance. Like you said, people on social media trying to get popular, using it for all the wrong reasons. And, it is what it is. We just got to counter it with the actual knowledge, which is, that's why I really appreciate you having me on the show today, because man, I don't care who it is or what platform, if we can sit down and talk this real talk, that's really what it's about, because people need to have these real conversations at this point. There's so many distractions, so many distractions right now.
And what's Gullah Dagoo? I might be saying it wrong. I think it's
Gullah Dagoo.
Okay.
So, So Gullah Dagoo is a LLC, a company. My wife and I, we started Gullah Dagoo several years ago, because when we first got here, like most repatriates, you don't really know what you're going to do to sustain yourself, because ultimately you want to cut off from America. If you're really about that repatriation life and you're trying to really send Kofi and get all the way in back to the culture, then you're trying to wean yourself off of needing anything from the West. You want to be able to sit in Africa self-sustainable. That's the ultimate conquest right there. Being here, living off the land, and you don't need nothing but what you're doing for yourself. And so when I first got here, like I told you earlier, it wasn't too many people coming here. But from when I got here to now, it has increased, especially over the last 5 years. A lot more people are coming back to Sierra Leone. I think it's really being driven by the DNA testing and the citizenships being granted and things like that. All of that came from somewhere.
Is that through African ancestry, right? With the citizenship?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's through African ancestry now. It's a long story. I can go into that for you, but let me make the first point, right?
Yeah.
So when I first got here, it wasn't that many people, and I got a background in entertainment. I got a background in event organizing. I have a background in construction, contracting. I got background in certain things that I used to deal with. So we put our skills on the table, and we used our knowledge. We began to study the history, understand the sites, the cultural heritage, begin to visit the sites ourselves and make connections within the government around the cultural heritage aspect, the history.
Okay.
And from there, we was like, you know what? We need to create a company that can service the diaspora that's coming to this country. So the purpose for Gullah Dugu, of course, is a play on our ethnicity, we Gullahs. And then Dugu, of course, is a Manding suffix that means the same as like town or place or kingdom or dominion. So when you hear Gullah Dugu, it's like the Gullah place or the Gullah home or whatever, right? So that's what the name means. But we provide a certain number of services now. We started off first doing consultancy. People would be coming to the country. People would get a DNA test and find out that they're Mende. They'd be willing to pay a consultant to learn more about their heritage and things like that. So the educational consultancy became one aspect, but also the tourism became another aspect. So we got into tourism back in 2015, 2016. And from there, now we provide even business consultancy services. We also set up businesses and manage projects. And so it's very diverse what we do now, but it's all predicated on providing services to the African diaspora that's coming back to this particular country to live, to visit, and to invest. So we have services that can assist those people. That's what Gullah Dugu is. So of course we have a for-profit. We got our business now. We're doing our business. But at the same time, we have our nonprofit entity as well, which is the Gullah Nation of North America, and we've been doing a lot of great work with that to tie the Gullahs back to Sierra Leone. Particularly within our community, we have a show that comes on every other Sunday called Gullah House Show. We run it right on YouTube. You can check us out at Gullah House Media. That's our channel. And we showcase everything. If we're doing a project and we grow 100 acres of food, we go there and we show you that. If we're working with some people and they're giving us respect, we turn the cameras on, we show you that. And so we try to make it as realistic and as grassroots as possible, our connection. And then also there's so many different hurdles to jump through when you're trying to do business in a country like this. So you need people on the ground that can guide you and already got the connections. It's not like you can just walk into a government office and get fair treatment. It's not like that. You really have to honor the way things are. And, like they say, while in Rome, do as Romans do. While in Africa, you got to learn the African way and go that way, because you don't want to go against the grain in Africa as well. You can find yourself messed up and people don't even be able to sympathize with you,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the project, what was that? The Clean Earth project? Now what's it about?
Oh yeah, it's called the Be Clean campaign.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. The Be Clean campaign became our flagship program out here, man. Because when I first got here, I was 33 years old. I was still messing around in the studio, and had a passion for music. So I immediately got with the youth because I was young, and I immediately got into the entertainment, making music, performing, organizing shows. Just as my social life here is what I got involved in. And another thing that we started doing was working out. There was a lot of youth that was interested in doing, body weightlifting and things like that. But here they make weights out of cement. They make real poor weights. But it's a long story. But when I first got here, within a month, I had joined a youth gym in my community, and we had a project where we began to develop do weightlifting competitions and mix it with hip hop, like hip hop and weightlifting.
Okay.
And take the money from that to improve the gym. So we did something like that, improve the gym every year, even till now. They still have the competition, but The long story short of that is that I began to develop relationships with the young people, those who usually get overlooked. I began to build a strong relationship with the street youth. And so the street youth became like my backbone here. More than any other aspect of the country, I could rely on the street youth because they could rely on me. It was like a real, it still is. I have a very intimate relationship with young folk here. And so Ebola happened. When Ebola happened, I was here. I didn't go anywhere.
Okay.
I actually led a campaign during that time to raise awareness about Ebola and to assist people who was dealing with the impact, the effects of it. It was an emergency situation, man. When they say Ebola was real, it was real. I had the opportunity to be in Guinea-Conakry at the same time. I was there for about 6 months during Ebola. So at that time, I got to actually go through a crisis with the people of Sierra Leone. And it's through those kind of situations that you really build a bond, so to speak. When you go through like a terrible situation with people, man, you be bonding.
Yeah.
And so the bond got very, very strong at that point. So by the time Ebola was gone, my wife came, and then they had the next atrocity that happened was they had a mudslide. Right now it's
Oh, yeah, I
raining.
remember
You can
that.
hear behind me, it's raining.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's raining. So it was raining. It was raining, and it had a big mudslide. Over 1,000 people died, and we were first responders. We ended up in the community. Once some of the youth that we knew, they lost their family members. We took some money over there, took some clothes, some school supplies over there, and basically was on call for them. If they needed us, we show up and try to do what we can do. When it first happened. And then in the community that I lived in, which was on the other side of town, there was a cholera scare. The market woman was afraid of, because of so many bodies got wiped out to the sea, that it was going to cause a sickness in the markets. And so there was this fear that, could only really be reduced if we was able to organize and clean the markets and kill the fear in the people who have to serve us food every day. So we organized what we called the Be Clean campaign. We sparked it then. The Be Clean campaign, we started in a place called Calabar Town on the east end of Freetown. We cleaned that market, man, about 5 times in like 4 months. We was out there, boom, cleaning. I'm talking about cleaning everything. And the people had never seen that market cleaned in that way. And the way we cleaned it was we used the same youth, the same street youth that everybody look at and say it ain't worth shit. We organized them, and we organized the market women themselves and some of the residents themselves to clean their community. And we backed them up. We made sure that we got the trash removed. We made sure that we was able to give them stipends. We had the bullhorn out there, man. We pulled the sets out. We was playing music. We had a very great time cleaning the market. And it was big because at that time, there was nobody doing anything like that anywhere in Freetown to clean markets and get people mobilized. And so that program actually has grown. We went from cleaning markets, then we cleaned a historical site known as King Jimmy Marketplace, which is a historical market where it's actually older than slavery. They have been keeping a market there since before the European got here. It was a place where Africans were exchanged. And then later on, it was the place where Africans were first returned to. So it's a historical place right there in the heart of Freetown called King Jimmy's Marketplace. And it was like a pig pen. They keep it in very poor conditions. So we went down there, met with the youth down there, met with the people living down there and working down there. We organized them. We cleaned that market as well for another 4 or 5 times. We campaigned with them in their communities. We raised what resources we could. We put the cameras on, brought the media in, and gave them the proper attention that they couldn't get for themselves, and armed them with some skills and some resources. So we was able to also go into certain communities and clean up. We also go into the schools. We go into the schools because we don't just deal with sanitation, we deal with hygiene. One of the causes of sickness here that's high is typhoid. Typhoid passes largely because of dirty hands. So we go into the schools and we
Let's see if he come back in.
Oh man, sorry about that, man. The
Oh
rent.
yeah, you broke up when you just said about the hands and Thai food.
Okay, yeah. So the hands and Thai food is a problem, and so we go into the schools and we do workshops. We do almost like, you know how back in the day they used to get all the kids into the auditorium and they do these little pep rallies.
Yeah.
So we do like a prep rally kind of situation, but we bring out the water, bring out the soap, and we show them the 20 times that it's best to clean their hands and scrub them with soap and how to get in between the fingers and scrub the palms. And no one never taught them to clean their hands like this, bro. And so we do that as well. And the last time we mobilized here, we cleaned the school building. We cleaned the school and exercised with the youth. So that program right there has also become international. So now every year we do an international cleanup with people from different cities all around the world. Last time we had 17 cities participate: Washington D.C., Brooklyn, New York, UK, Britain. We had Lagos, Nigeria on deck. We had Monrovia, Liberia, Jacksonville, Florida. So we're able to mobilize people from different cities now to take on the purpose of our campaign and then launch them locally where they are, to find blighted areas that are, put like this: if you live in the hood, right, and the hood is dirty, then that's the perfect place for gentrifiers. That's the perfect place for people to come and buy up properties that if we clean up and buy up and refurbish, that we can keep for our own families. A lot of the gentrification is driven by neglect. It's driven by the neglect of, we neglect the communities and the buildings to the point that they become, abandoned. They become places that now someone who wants to come and buy up a whole block of abandoned houses and gentrify it, it's very easy to do it. So if we're not taking care of those lots and growing food there and giving positive community purpose to those places, they're going to use them as an opportunity to come in and move us up out of there. Yeah. And so even over there is very, very important. So yeah, man, that's what it is. A lot of the diseases are hygiene and sanitation related.
About the Gullah Geechee flag, I noticed it's two flags.
Yeah.
So
well, you have the flag of the Gullah Geechee Nation. The Gullah Geechee Nation is led by Queen Quet, and it's based out of the Sea Islands, and it was largely created for those who were isolated and really retain the most aspects of the culture. Okay. But the Gullah Nation of North America, like, we're more about lineage. We're more about genealogy in Africa and connecting everybody by lineage. So if you are a descendant of a Gullah Geechee person, we acknowledge you as a Gullah Geechee. Just like if you're a descendant of a Mende, they acknowledge you as a descendant of a Mende. So we're taking it more as an identity of a people, as opposed to a language of a people that is largely going extinct for the most part, right? No one's really talking it as a first language like that. So if we limit what is and what is not Gullah Geechee to the language alone, then we're going to end up with a very small group that's becoming extinct. But if we look at the lineages and we realize that the Great Migration and the westward expansion took us into a national platform, took people from the counties where Gullah Geechee culture was created and dispersed us all throughout the United States of America, then you can trace those lineages back to those counties and you'll find the lost and found Gullah Geechee people. And so that's what the Gullah Nation of North America is about. So the cause of the Gullah Nation of North America, us, Gonona, and the Gullah Geechee Nation, our causes are not exactly the same. We are Gullah Geechee people, but our causes aren't the same. And then that flag, like for instance, there was complaints that people would hang that flag up or represent that flag, and then they would get contacted and say, hey, you ain't with us, take that flag down.
You talking about the one with the circle with the tree in it?
Yeah. Okay. They're very close and tight-knitted and confined largely to the corridor, largely to the Low Country, largely to Beaufort. But like I said, And if you look talking about lineages and not language, you're talking about millions of people that probably don't even know they're Gullah Geechee right now. You know what I'm saying? And so that's what we focus on, the Gullah Geechee diaspora. And so when you see the second flag, that second flag is called actually the Geechee Experience flag. It was created by a brother named Chris Cato. He actually was working with this name Akua Page. They had a group called they made up a group of what do you call it? Content creators and language promoters for the Gullah Geechee people out of Charleston. But brother Chris Cato was the one who actually had the flag designed and everything, and it was because they had some experiences trying to represent the other flag, just out of pride, and people feeling as though, that's a little more of a personal flag, like you got to get permission before you use that flag, this or that. So the ideal for the Geechee Experience flag was to break that mold of it being something that's privately owned or controlled, and give us a symbol and a flag that all of us who have the lineage, regardless of where we are, can be proud of. And so I call it the Gullah Geechee diaspora flag. But technically it's the Geechee Experience flag. That brother and sister brought it to the light and presented it. And now, I got the first one hanging up on my wall back there. That's the first one ever printed.
I ordered one off her website. Who that? Kua?
Yeah, but cool. They I don't think they're working together anymore. So I think that they kind of parted ways, and you can get things from either one of them, from Chris Cato or from Kua.
I seen it on the website because I got the kids book that she wrote. I got that and I seen the flag. I was trying to get it. I had messaged her for an interview, and she said just let her know.
Yeah, man. Akua is important because it's important to have young Gullah Geechee people from right there, especially in the urban environment in Charleston. Because a lot of times you think about Gullah Geechee, man, you think about country folk, you think about isolated people, you think about slow people, man, you think about damn near slave people, man. That's not who he is. The majority of us are urbanized today. The majority of us live in Savannah. The majority of us live in Charleston. We live in Wilmington, North Carolina. We live in Jacksonville. That's where we're living at right now. If you're looking for Gullah Geechees, it's the small populations that's out there in the countryside. And so this image that the Gullah Geechees are only the people living on the islands, this Gullah Island thing, that's not true, man. That's a very false impression because, first of all, you don't get Gullah Geechee without inland and tidal rice cultivation. Without the culture and the plantations that was created to create Carolina gold rice, you don't get Gullah Geechee culture. So when you say where was Gullah Geechee culture created at? It was created on rice plantations. There was other plantations, there was other things happening, but the culture itself emerged out of the rice plantations. It emerged because they had a different relationship with the Booker at the time. The Booker couldn't stick around because we brought malaria with us. He would have to leave us there for periods of time to ourselves. The white man never knew how to plant rice. This is another argument too. Don't call Gullah Geechees Native Americans until you can show me some Native Americans who know how to do tidal rice and inland rice. So you got to show. Yeah, you got to show me. You got to show me. And so they brought the Gullah Geechee people specifically from a region where that form of rice cultivation had been mastered by even the ordinary people because it was a staple. And so all they had to do was bring those people over and hold them on plantations in isolation, and then naturally was going to grow a whole bunch of rice. That was their native staple in Africa. And so the white man didn't teach us how to grow rice. He didn't introduce rice to us. We introduced it. That's the power of the Gullah Geechee identity, is because you can't turn it into something that's non-African. Once you understand that our population was formed around the production of a particular crop that came from Africa, an African crop, that the white man had no knowledge of. And so when I say that, the rice was grown along the rivers and along the swamps. It was grown inland. The rice was not grown on the sea islands.
Okay, that's deep right there.
Rice can't grow in salt water.
Wow. All right.
Tho- Those were cotton. Those were cotton places. The Sea Islands they grew what you call royal cotton. They grew a particular type of cotton that was grown down in St. Helena, down in Beaufort. Maybe they could grow some rice from the rainfall, but we're talking about a specialized form of rice growing that used high level of engineering, high level of science, high level of ditch digging and hydroponics, and utilizing the force and the power of the sea to flood fields of rice and to capture that water and know how to dike it. You know what I mean? And learn. And we built something that the European had no ability to build. And there was thousands and thousands and thousands of miles of rice being grown in South Carolina and Georgia at a certain point. And the people from those rice plantations developed a culture that was unique to them. That is the seed of Gullah Geechee. It doesn't mean everybody who was enslaved, but culturally, that's the seed. So when you say that Gullah Geechee is on the Sea Islands, you got to show me rice on the Sea Islands. You got to show me inland, and you got to show me tidal rice cultivation on the Sea Islands.
So is
Can't.
Geechee the people that was inland and Gullah the people that was on the islands, or is it just the same?
Well, the main thing to understand about the Gullah and the Geechee thing is that originally it was people in Georgia who was using the term Geechee, mainland people.
Okay.
And originally it was a distinction between the Geechees on the islands and the Geechees on the mainland. So you had the saltwater Geechees and you had the freshwater Geechees. The ones who, if they go find a body of water and dip it, the water's fresh. They on the mainland. If the people out there in the sea surrounded on the islands, they dip their hand in water, it's going to be salty. So you got the saltwater Geechee, got the freshwater Geechee. Most of those people came down from South Carolina anyway, or came directly into Savannah from the port from Africa, and was scattered all throughout those sea islands. So Geechee is a term that came largely from the South and from Georgia. I remember Georgia used to be Carolina. Georgia is drafted and broken off of Carolina originally. So is North Carolina. The original Carolina colony is North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia all in one.
Yeah, because Georgia didn't
And
exist at the
so
time, right?
the people, yeah, at first Georgia didn't even exist, man. You understand? And so you had Geechee, and then the word Gullah, from my understanding, is that it was more prominent in the South Carolina Sea Islands, and there were some people who would refer to themselves as Gullah in Charleston, but Geechee was the most famous and the most popular term. And the way I understood it was that the Gullah is the language and the Geechee is the people. So basically, Geechee is more of the culture of the people, and Gullah is more like the language of the people. You know what I'm saying? And so I understand that, but now we use it as an ethnonym. An ethnonym is basically our ethnic name. You know, I'm not an African American. I'm a Gullah Geechee. You understand? Clearly. And so we use it as an ethnonym. That's why it's Gullah Nation or Gullah Geechee Nation. We have nationalized the concept of our ancestry, and legitimately so. We have a very unique and distinct cultural heritage and even genetic heritage that makes us unique. Not separate. I mean, not superior, but definitely not inferior to none. We have created through ethnogenesis and through generations of living and evolving our culture in North America. We've created something that wouldn't exist had our ancestors not do that. And so it's very, 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 very important that we all understand what Gullah Geechee is, even if you don't consider yourself that, or you might not be one or not like that. You ain't find the exact ancestor that can make you confident in claiming the identity yet. If you're African in the United States of America, you should be proud of it. Just like I find a lot of pride in the Creole culture of New Orleans. I don't have any lineage connection to that culture, but I find great pride in it because those are my brothers and sisters. Those are African people, particularly that has experienced the same oppression as my ancestors. So, it's not so much that we make a tribal distinction, but we move in a certain way. You know what I'm saying? Gullah Geechee together is one thing today. We don't make the separation. The separation was due to the confusion of the white man, not us.
right. Well, it was nice. It was nice for you to explain everything about your organization and the Gullah Geechee heritage, and I really appreciate that. And I'm gonna hit you. I'm gonna hit you up. I'm gonna hit you up on the phone. We're gonna talk about the little program you got with the genetics. Cause
No doubt, no doubt.
so I'm gonna give you a call in a few days, and we're gonna talk about that.
Yeah, man. I'm gonna have to get you on to Gullah House show as well.
Okay.
You know, because you got them Aiken roots, and that's very local to us. Those of us who are building the Gullah Nation of North America, we're headquartered out of Orangeburg currently, and you know, Orangeburg is the birthplace of Gullah studies. It's the first place that Dr. Lorenzo Dole Turner heard Gullah Geechee people speaking their language.
Yeah, that's the one
It
that wrote
wasn't
the
in the
book.
low country. Yeah, the first time he ever heard the language was in Orangeburg. It wasn't in no low country. And so what we've been claiming is the Orangeburg Gullah Geechee heritage, because we've been doing research and documenting evidence of there being a vibrant Gullah Geechee heritage and culture among people who were enslaved in Orangeburg district, which would include Aiken. So we've been dispelling the myth that the Gullah Geechee people are only on the Sea Islands, that they're only at the coast. It's not true. We're farther inland as well. The lineages, the people. And so it's very important because it changes who a lot of people perceive themselves to be. I like to invite you as well to the Gullah House show, but like you said, we'll talk about it, you know, after the show.
Okay. All right. Peace.
Peace, brother.